Sometimes we look back at our pain and wonder why it had to happen. We think about the betrayal, the lies, the heartbreak, and we ask, why me? It feels like everything was set up to break us, to crush the parts of us that were still soft, trusting, open. And yet in that breaking, something deeper was unfolding. What they meant to use as weapons to destroy you, Allah used as tools to shape you. The very things that were supposed to end you were part of a plan to build you, elevate you, and awaken you. That's the power of divine mercy. It transforms pain into purpose. You see, the people who hurt you may have done so out of jealousy, spite, ignorance, or even cruelty. They might have tried to ruin your reputation, sabotage your dreams, or silence your voice. And in the moment it felt like they succeeded. You fell, you cried, you bled, you questioned everything, your worth, your purpose, even your faith. But in that darkness something sacred was happening. Allah, who knows what no one else knows, saw your tears. He saw the way your heart broke in secret. He saw the way you held yourself together when you wanted to collapse. And He didn't ignore it. Because pain in this life is never wasted in the sight of Allah. Every tear, every ache, every silent dua, it all counts. He doesn't allow anything to happen to you without reason. When they tried to break you, He was building you. He was strengthening your patience. He was deepening your empathy. He was increasing your resilience. He was cleansing your soul. The fire you walked through didn't burn you. It purified you. It stripped away illusions, false attachments, and shallow identities, so that what remained was raw, real, and ready to be transformed. What hurts you isn't always what harms you, and what breaks you doesn't always destroy you. In fact, some of the most profound growth comes from being broken, because it's only when something cracks that light can enter. Allah in His infinite wisdom knew what had to be removed from your life in order to elevate you. He allowed certain people to leave. He allowed certain doors to close, not because He was punishing you, but because He was protecting you. He saw the things you couldn't. He knew what would break you beyond repair, and what would bend you just enough to make you stronger. So those people who walked away, they weren't meant to stay. That opportunity that slipped through your hands, it wasn't meant to be yours. That plan that fell apart, it was never part of your true path. You see, what they wanted was small compared to what Allah had planned. They wanted to see you fall, but Allah wanted to see you rise. They wanted to embarrass you, but Allah wanted to purify you. They wanted to expose your weakness, but Allah wanted to expose your strength. The world saw you break, but Allah saw you being rebuilt. He used the very storm that was meant to drown you to teach you how to swim. He used your loneliness to pull you closer to Him. He used your heartbreak to remove the idols from your heart, those people or things you thought you couldn't live without. He reminded you, gently and painfully, that no one completes you except Him. No one heals you except Him. No one can define you, limit you, or save you except Him. When you understand this, you stop resenting your pain. You stop wishing it away. Instead, you start searching for the lesson. You start asking, what is Allah trying to teach me here? What door is He opening through this pain? And you begin to see that every moment of hurt was also a moment of spiritual invitation. An invitation to return to Him, to surrender to Him, to trust Him even when the road makes no sense. This is not blind faith. It's courageous faith. The kind that says, even though I don't understand, I still trust. The kind that allows you to weep and worship at the same time. The kind that recognizes that healing is not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. That even if they tried to break you, they never had the final say. Only Allah does. And if He allowed the breaking, it's only because He planned the rebuilding. So know your pain was never pointless. It was part of the process, part of the story, part of the transformation. You didn't just survive it, you were sculpted by it. The fire didn't consume you, it refined you. And now when you look back, you may not love what happened, but you can be grateful for what it created in you. A version of yourself that is more aware, more anchored, more in tune with your Creator. Because the person who emerges from divine pain is not the same as the one who walked into it. You carry wisdom now. You carry strength. You carry a kind of compassion that only those who've been broken can hold. And perhaps most importantly, you carry a closeness to Allah that you might not have known otherwise. So the next time someone tries to break you, remember they're not in control. They never were. Their plan is nothing next to Allah's plan. And their attempt to harm you is just another opportunity for Allah to raise you. You are not what they did to you. You are what Allah did with it. And what He does is always beautiful, even when it begins in pain. Rejection is one of the most painful feelings a human being can experience. Whether it's someone walking away from you, doors closing in your face, or people turning their backs just when you needed them most, those moments feel heavy, personal, and at times unbearable. But what if those rejections weren't really rejections at all? What if they were redirections? What if the betrayal that cut you the deepest was actually saving you from a future far worse than the past you cried over? You see, not every no is a punishment. Sometimes it's the greatest mercy in disguise. Sometimes it's not that you were unwanted, it's that you were being protected. That person you thought was your soulmate, that opportunity you thought would change your life, that place you felt was your home, when it was taken from you, you felt lost. But looking back, you start to realize that the one who controls your path saw what you didn't. He saw what was ahead. He saw what would come with that relationship, that job, that environment. And because He loves you more than you love yourself, He didn't let you settle for what would slowly drain your soul. The betrayal you experienced, the one that made you question your worth, it wasn't about you being unworthy. It was about that situation being unfit for where Allah wants to take you. You were asking for growth, for peace, for elevation, and He knew that staying where you were would stunt you, break you, or bury you. So He removed it. And yes, sometimes He removed it painfully, because your heart was attached, because you were holding on too tightly. But if the pain of separation was deep, it's only because the healing on the other side is deeper. Redirection often starts with heartbreak. The moment when everything collapses and you feel like your world is falling apart. You don't see a way out. You don't understand the wisdom. All you feel is abandonment. But slowly you start to see things differently. You notice that the rejection freed you from a cycle you couldn't escape. That the person who left was blocking your growth. That the job you lost was draining your purpose. And what looked like the end was actually the beginning of something better. Something cleaner. Something more aligned with your values, your faith, and your future. That's how Allah works. He removes not to punish, but to purify. He closes doors not to frustrate you, but to redirect you. You're not meant to spend your life knocking on a door that leads nowhere. So sometimes He closes it abruptly, even painfully, to push you toward a door that leads to where your soul will finally breathe again. And in that process He strips you of the people and things you thought you needed, not to leave you empty, but to fill you with something greater. His closeness, His wisdom, His plan. Rejection is one of the ways He speaks. It's one of the ways He reshapes your life when you've been too afraid to make the change yourself. Sometimes you pray for ease, and He answers by removing something heavy you didn't realize was weighing you down. Sometimes you pray for happiness, and He answers by revealing the truth behind the smiles around you. Sometimes you pray for peace, and He answers by tearing apart the foundation you built on shaky ground, so He can build it again, stronger, truer, unshakable. And sometimes the redirection feels like abandonment, because we often equate presence with love, and absence with punishment. But that's not always true. There are people who will be present in your life, but slowly destroy you. And there are times when Allah's greatest love comes in the form of silence. When He removes something or someone from your life, He's not walking away. He's taking the pen and rewriting your story, in a way that protects you from what you didn't see coming. The pain of betrayal can be blinding. It makes you question everyone, even yourself. You wonder if you were enough, if you did something wrong, if you misread everything. But remember this: people's betrayal says more about them than it does about you. Their inability to see your value doesn't diminish it. Their decision to walk away doesn't define your worth. And their actions are not the final word in your life. Only Allah writes that. And He never wastes pain. He never wastes tears. He never wastes tears. He never redirects you without a purpose. He knows the nights you cried, the questions you asked, the heaviness you carried, and through all of it He was leading you somewhere better, even if the road was rocky, because sometimes the only way to get you to the right place is to shake you out of the wrong one, and that shaking hurts, but it also awakens you. So if you're in a season of rejection right now, know this: you're not being punished, you're being protected, you're not being erased, you're being rewritten, you're not being abandoned, you're being redirected to something better. But better doesn't always mean easier. Sometimes it means more authentic, more fulfilling, more aligned with your purpose. Trust the one who sees what you can't. Trust the detours, the closed doors, the unanswered prayers, because they're not delays, they're directions. And when it finally all makes sense, you'll look back and thank Him for every no, every exit, every goodbye, because it brought you closer to your real path, the one He handcrafted just for you. When everything goes quiet, when the people who used to be around you disappear, when even your own voice seems like an echo in an empty room, you begin to wonder, why this silence? Why this loneliness? You scroll through your phone and no one checks in. You cry in prayer, and it feels like there's no answer. You sit with your thoughts and feel as though the world has turned its back on you. And in those moments, the weight of isolation can feel unbearable. But what if that isolation wasn't abandonment? What if it wasn't punishment? What if it was protection? What if it was preparation? Too often we equate loneliness with rejection. We think that being left alone means something is wrong with us. We assume that if people walked away, if they stopped calling, if they no longer care, then we must be broken or unworthy. But sometimes people are removed from our lives not because of who we are, but because of who we are becoming. And sometimes Allah isolates you not to hurt you, but to heal you. When you're surrounded by noise, it's hard to hear your own soul. When you're constantly distracted, you can't reflect. When you're always giving to others, you forget to check in on yourself. So Allah, in His mercy, begins to strip away the noise. He pulls you out of the crowd. He quiets your surroundings. And yes, at first, it feels like a loss. But in that silence, you start to hear again, not the voices of others, but your own voice, and most importantly, His voice. In isolation there are no masks. You're not performing for anyone. You're not explaining yourself to anyone. You're just you with your thoughts, your doubts, your fears, and your wounds. And it's there, in that raw, honest space, that the real transformation begins. It's there that Allah starts to rebuild what the world tried to break. It's there that you rediscover your worth, not based on other people's approval, but based on your connection to your Creator. Think about the most powerful prophets and spiritual leaders. Almost all of them went through seasons of isolation. Musa as was alone in the desert. Yusuf as was alone in the well and later in prison. Maryam as was alone in labor, isolated from her people. Even the Prophet Muhammad, Salam, was isolated in the cave of Hira when the revelation first came to him. That solitude was not a coincidence. It was part of their preparation. Before they could carry their mission, they had to be purified, strengthened and realigned. Alone, because isolation isn't emptiness, it's a sacred space where you reconnect with your soul and your Lord. It's where clarity returns. It's where dependence on others fades, and you begin to depend fully on the one who never leaves. And in that dependence, there is freedom. Freedom from needing validation. Freedom from fearing rejection. Freedom from pretending. In that space you find who you really are. The world may call you lonely, but in reality, you are being loved differently. Loved in a way that heals. Loved in a way that prepares. Allah removes you from harmful environments, from toxic people, from exhausting cycles, not to leave you with nothing, but to give you something greater: peace, clarity, and nearness to Him. And that nearness doesn't always come through blessings. Sometimes it comes through heartbreak. Sometimes it comes through silence. Sometimes it comes when there's no one left to turn to, and you finally look up and whisper, Ya Allah, I have no one but you. And that moment, that's the moment of rebirth. That's the moment your heart starts to beat again with meaning. You learn that isolation isn't about being forgotten. It's about being remembered by the one who matters most. While the world overlooks you, He is watching you. While others forget you, He is preparing you. While they move on, He is moving you forward. Quietly,
gently, purposefully. And though you may not see it now, one day you'll look back and realize that the period you thought would break you actually made you. You'll see how solitude taught you to pray sincerely, how silence taught you to listen deeply, how loneliness taught you to appreciate companionship, and how being stripped of everyone made you finally meet yourself. You'll see how your strength didn't come from people, it came from your patience, how your worth wasn't in what you gave others, but in how you turned to Allah when you had nothing to give. So if you find yourself in a season of silence, don't rush to fill it. Don't panic. Don't think you've been abandoned. You are in a sacred space, a cocoon, a private classroom, where your soul is being realigned. Allah removes you from what you wanted to give you, what you needed. And sometimes what you need is Him, and only Him. Let that space mold you. Let it purify you. Let it draw out the parts of you that were buried under distractions, fears, and false attachments. Let it teach you that your strength isn't in being surrounded, it's in being centered. Centered on faith, centered on purpose, centered on the one who never leaves. When the time is right, you'll be reintroduced to the world, but you won't return as the same person. You'll return wiser, calmer, firmer in your faith. You'll walk into rooms, no longer begging to be seen, but ready to serve, ready to love from a place of fullness, not emptiness, ready to speak from a heart that has been healed by the hands of its creator. So no, your isolation isn't a punishment, it's a pause, it's a recalibration, it's a sacred silence filled with divine purpose. You're not being left behind, you're being set apart, not to be forgotten, but to be prepared. And when the world finally sees you again, they'll see someone who survived the quiet, grew in the dark, and came back glowing with the light of Allah's care. There are moments in life when people walk away from you, when doors you were counting on suddenly close, when relationships you invested in crumble without warning. And in those moments, you're left questioning everything. You wonder what you did wrong. You ask why someone could be so quick to forget everything you gave, everything you shared, everything you sacrificed. It feels like a deep betrayal, like something was ripped from your heart without mercy. But here's the truth that brings healing. What was taken was never truly yours, and what's truly yours, no one can take away. So often we build our identities around things that were never meant to complete us. We attach ourselves to people, careers, plans and dreams, thinking that if we just hold on tightly enough, they'll never leave. We tell ourselves that we need them, that we can't live without them, that life would be meaningless without their presence. And then when they're gone, it feels like the world has ended. But sometimes it takes losing what you thought you couldn't live without to realize the only one you truly need is the one who never leaves. When someone is taken from your life, whether by betrayal, by distance, or by death, it's painful. It's human to grieve, to feel loss, to question why. But part of spiritual maturity is learning to recognize the mercy within the loss. Because when Allah takes something away, it's never out of cruelty, it's out of divine wisdom. He knows what you don't. He sees the unseen. And He knows when something you thought was good for you is actually holding you back from what is best. The person who broke your heart wasn't meant to be your foundation. The job that rejected you wasn't your only chance. The friend who left you in silence wasn't your true support. These things felt like they were yours, but they weren't. They were temporary gifts, lessons, signs, meant to shape you, teach you, and move you towards something greater. They were never the source of your worth or your purpose. They were never your destination. They were the road, not the home. And that's the key. Your true home is with the one who created you. The only relationship that never ends, never betrays, never abandons, is your relationship with Allah. Everything else in life is a gift, not a guarantee. People come and go, money flows in and out, status rises and falls, but your connection to Allah, that's what grounds you. That's what remains when everything else disappears. That's what brings you peace when your heart is aching. When you understand this, you stop chasing people who left. You stop mourning what was never meant to stay. You stop blaming yourself for the choices others made. You start trusting the process. You start seeing loss, not as punishment, but as purification. You realize that Allah removes what distracts you, so He can give you what fulfills you. And sometimes what He gives doesn't look like what you expected, but it's exactly what your soul needed. You may think, but I loved that person. I needed that job. I built my life around that dream. And Allah knows that. He sees your heart. He honors your sincerity. But he also knows what's best for your future. He knows that sometimes you're holding on to something that would destroy you if it stayed. So he removes it, gently, painfully, completely, not to hurt you, but to heal you. There's a verse that brings deep comfort. Perhaps you dislike something, and it is good for you, and perhaps you love something, and it is bad for you, and Allah knows why you know not. That's not just a reminder, it's a reality. You don't see the full picture. You don't know what Allah is protecting you from. You don't see the alternative future that He's guiding you toward. But He does. And when you trust that, even your heartbreak becomes sacred. Even your tears become part of your transformation. What's meant for you won't miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. This isn't just a nice quote. It's a spiritual truth. It means you can let go with grace. You can surrender without despair. You can walk away without hatred, because you know that what is yours, what is written for you by Allah, will come. Not a moment too early, not a second too late. It will arrive exactly when your heart is ready to receive it. So if you're holding on to the memory of someone who left, release them, not with bitterness, but with peace. If you're clinging to a door that's been shut, turn around. There's a better one waiting. If you're stuck in regret over what could have been, remind yourself, Allah doesn't close a chapter unless He's preparing to write a better one. You're not losing, you're being redirected. You're not empty, you're being prepared to be filled with something far more meaningful. The pain you feel is valid, but it's not permanent. The ache in your chest is real, but it's not the end of your story. You will heal. You will smile again. You will look back and thank Allah for taking away what you once begged Him to keep. Because with time, you'll see that it wasn't a loss. It was a gift. A painful gift, but one that taught you who you are, what you deserve, and who your true source of peace is. Let go. Let go of what wasn't yours. Let go of the need to control every outcome. Let go of the illusion that people complete you, and hold on to Allah. Because in that holding, there is no fear. There is no loss, there is only gain. What you build with Him, no one can take. What He gives you, no one can block. And what He writes for you, no one can erase.